On the sixth.
Awesome. Tony Angelo, would you like for me to kick us off?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Well, welcome Region D friends and family, if you are all family. 'Tis the season of gratitude as we're approaching Thanksgiving next week already. It's kind of crazy, right? Time flies. Wanted to kick off our meeting before we get into our PowerPoint. Just wanted to acknowledge that, and I'm sure you all have seen it. I've gotten some responses. We did send, as a team, an email to all of you for some strategic recommendations for guidance of what the year ahead could look like. We all know that given the elections, there's going to be a lot of transitions. Someone's talking. Okay. So we just wanted to acknowledge that we sent you some thoughtful recommendations, on some advice around maybe starting to prepare your application. We have not heard anything about when RFPs will drop. The minute we hear, believe me, you will hear. So we have no idea where that is. As we also know, and I recognized it, I think in bullet 4 of my email was the budget awareness that the 2024-2025 federal budget is still currently under resolution and through December 20th at that point. So as we await on those things, I just encourage folks as much as you can. I know we're going into the holiday season, to do as much prep. I know I sat with my team yesterday and we started looking at like the needs assessment stuff, right? Things that we can, the data, right? We know what our data is in Colorado around special education and things that we could start putting together, so that you can really fill the narrative once the RFP does drop.
I'll just say that Michelle, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify for PTIs, not the CPRCs.
Correct.
Yeah, just for clarification.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you guys are on different years, and I know that got confusing with the APRs one year. So yes, and again, in the spirit of education, right? We are not policy organizations, and being educational, connect as much as you can in your communities and your states with elected officials, with engaging with like disability partners, because we are better together. We are bigger together. We are a movement. And really strong in what we do. And I think the more that we get the message out about the work that we do, the more we're moving the needle forward in opportunities. So I really do encourage that. And then just your staff reassurances, as leaders, and we all know it's really hard, and people see things or read things or hear things, and it's really hard to keep people positive and energetic and just really in coming to work every day. And as many of us are parents, and or family members and dealing with that. So just, hopefully some of the advice we put together for you or strategy will help propel you forward. We are here for you as a TA team. We can talk always, individually. I will also share, and I'll end with this so that we can move on to our kickoff so that we could share the exciting stuff that we have for you for this year. Is National Place is in the process. I'm on their board. So they are planning a forum to discuss election stuff. That is what National Place does. They are the space for that. As much as, we'd love to have that dialogue, that's not what we do, and that's not the TA. So I do encourage, for those of you that, you've heard Renee, or if you need any connections, I do encourage the membership to Place. Again, it was $250 a year. I think it's a great opportunity. I know some of you have talked to, so no brainer you're going to join. I'm not a spokesperson for them to get more membership from the sense, but I do think there is benefit to forums and discussion groups like that, as well as I know when they did something on the Loper Bright recently, a lot of information came out of that. So they are looking to do that in the next couple of weeks. I want to say it's going to be December 5th. It looks like we've been locking some dates as a board. So, we are we are a membership organization, so it will only go out to members. So I do encourage, for you to do that so you could be part of that. And find out more and, again, a place and a forum for you to ask questions, have more of that policy focus and a fruitful discussion. So I didn't want to not start this meeting addressing what I would say, and Angela and Tony and I talked about this, an elephant in the room, right? We had an election. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of conversations. So we just wanted to kick it off and be more proactive to say, there's a lot we don't know moving forward, but we're in this together, and hopefully some of the advice we gave you was helpful. And with that, Tony, I will have you move us. I think you are kicking us off with the slides. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, welcome everybody. This is our 2025 year two kickoff, and we'll actually start it with a kind of bit of a review with the highlights. So, we a lot of, well, most of you, almost everybody participated in the ICAP mini grants, which was great. You got an extra $2,000 to help you, you and your center along, which was really, we're happy to do that. And I know a lot of you participated with the Parent Center Capacity Building Series that we did with Glenda. What we did, like 7, I think, of those, 7, and that went off really well. And just to let you know, a lot of the stuff now is being put on our website, so our TA website. So if you want to review any of this, any of the series, you can go, and we're taking it off Zoom and putting it on our website, and it's there for the taking. Also, you all participated in the APR webinar series with Nora, and we'll do that again next spring as well, because that always seems to be needed and it's always helpful. So I don't know if Nora will do it, but it'll definitely be done. And then we had a great response from our technology capacity building series that we did with Joe LaBelle on AI, and that was probably one of our most popular sessions I think we've done. And then we did a brief recap on the unauthorized practices of law webinar, as well as the now famous Idaho Regional Gathering, which I think of all the gatherings that we've done, even prior to peak, it was the highest rated gathering we ever did, and best well received, and just went really, really well. That was, I think, the highest marks we ever got. And then, of course, the OSEP Leadership Conference and the new directors training, which I know some of you participated in as well. As far as our data, as far as our webinars, we averaged 94% for relevant, useful, and effective, with good positive feedback from everybody, which was really nice. I appreciate when you guys give your feedback, because that's what we kind of bank on. That's how we shape and form everything that we do. The Idaho Gathering was, again, averaged 96% for relevant, useful, and effective. And again, just fantastic feedback on that, which was, again, I can't say enough. When I know it's a pain, you guys probably get bombarded with emails, but it's so important because it does shape everything we do to make sure that we're giving you what you need.
And Tony, I can just say we had great response. The begging and pleading department for responses really did help. You all were wonderful at getting those evals back to us. So thanks for that too.
Yeah, that's the best response actually we ever got too. It was great. Just so invaluable. Let's see, our Region DP TAC, our goals and objectives. And these, we pretty much, I'm sure you know, but it's increased parent centers' capacity to inform and effectively train parents and youth, both virtually and in person. Goal 2 is to increase parent centers' capacity to reach more parents and youth, to equitably and effectively provide services that will improve outcomes for students and self-advocacy skills for youth. And goal 3, increase parent centers' capacities to sustainably manage their nonprofit organizations and projects effectively and equitably. And I know that's just kind of redundant, but it's always nice to be reminded that is our 3 main goals. Now, is this Michelle?
Is this me?
Before you jump in, I did want to say on these things, just so that you, just as a reminder, on that first slide in the review, you might have seen in the parentheses some numbers, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, right? And one more back right there. You can see all with the focus on 3, 5, and 6, right? So we actually, when Tony was talking about how we do just listen and we break it down, we went through and looked to ensure that we were meeting the goals, that they were aligned with each of the goals and those objectives. So, you know, for those of you that had the all of those objectives and topical areas that we did the ICAPs on, we were able to break those down and then see what you all applied those mini grants towards and which grant goal and objectives they aligned with. And interesting, like on this one, you can see all of them focused on 3, 5, and 6. And so I'd have to pull those in order to see specifically what those were. But when you're on that slide of the topical areas, I think they're in that same order. So the diversity, HR, staff capacity. So anyway, that's tied to all of those things. And we really are looking at that closely.
Yeah, we went over that quite a bit, which was great. And that definitely helps us a lot too. So actually I have one more, sorry. So our goal alignment, adult learning principles, disability related topics. We're going to focus a lot on equity and diversity, certainly effective outreach, reach to unserved and underserved families and youth, effective nonprofit management practices, and effective staff development. And really, we do get a lot. We're going to focus a lot on nonprofit management practices and staff development because we've got a lot of requests for that to really focus on that. So that is something we're definitely going to will be a high priority.
Okay.
All right, Michelle, take it away.
Awesome. Yay, exciting. So I get to talk about some key activities. So as you probably heard in the last session that we did, and Pam Kelly did an amazing job as a guest speaker, we really are also trying to connect so many things that we're doing. So one, the ICAP grants that came out that you received, and when we started to really put them into buckets, we were seeing common threads or themes where you were all using those dollars to support the Parent Center and kind of correlating that, which then also tied to Pam Kelly's conversation when she talked about nonprofit management trends that she was seeing in the industry around HR and different things. So we were seeing like common threads and themes here. So one of the things is we are excited that we're in this month and next month in our planning phase, but in January, Pam Kelly will be kicking off those interviews and working with every center. So every PTI, every CPRC will get an interview time. And again, we're going through all of this year in that process. So it's not like we're going to do them all within 1 week. So we look out for that because we'll be working with you to obviously honor your time and schedule. I think there was a question in the last session and Pam thought the interview would be about an hour. So it's not going to take a chunk of your time, but it's really going to be helpful to kind of get to know what we call the culture of your center. It's kind of like a needs assessment, but not doing it in a survey format where those things, you know, we all don't need another survey to complete. Two, it's much more than those things tend to get like collected, analyzed, and then on a shelf. This is really a kind of discussion oriented thing that really can drive us all forward together. So it really will give us all information and have you help us drive the ship and kind of the needs of our region, of your centers, of your states, and things that we can use that data to collect to move forward. Really excited. And I think, True, I think you spent your dollars on this for your team. And it kind of propelled some momentum in my brain that in the spirit of December, we really thought it would be helpful to have a session, unfortunately Zoom because not together, but it'll be a self-care session. It'll be led by Dr. Tracy Gershwin from University of Northern Colorado. So it's a research-based session. It's not one of those like, oh, self-care, go get a cup of coffee and treat yourself. It's really research-based around, I know I took it, we actually had it at our peak conference. and giving yourself grace, giving yourself a moment. There's a lot of good data in there, again, around research-based self-care and why it's so important. For us in particular, we know for also educators, people we work with. So she'll do that session for us. I believe it's December 12th.
Michelle, why don't we go to the next slide? Because I think you go through each of these individually
Oh, I
instead of
do?
on that. Yeah, so that way we got, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
I don't think
and
we
then,
do all of them though, do we? Okay, we
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Okay. Wait, Tony,
Yeah.
can you just go back? Because I just want to make sure there was something I didn't like miss in saying as I look at the list. Go back one slide. I just want to go because I had myself prepared. I don't want to lose. Just Tony, can you flip back, please? There you go. So yes, we're gonna go through all of these. I wanted to highlight in the spirit of it. As we move forward, there is a common thread to everything that we'll be doing. So around the non-profit leadership capacity, and we'll talk about this, but it also will again correlate to the interviews that Pam Kelly's doing, the trends that we're seeing that families need. HR was huge. That came out of the ICAP grant. So we are looking at an HR boot camp. So yes, we will go through, but just to kind of walk you, these are the initiatives that we're focusing on. Okay, now I'm ready, Tony. I just wanted to make sure my train of thought didn't get. Moving on to the next slide. There we go. So this was a chart Pam Kelly shared. So we're in planning with her. She'll be scheduling interviews January through June. And we'll be also implementing, as we're interviewing different centers, some of the practices and some of the information we gather into kind of, again, series or different things that we're seeing the needs are, making sure we're having throughout January through September. And then we'll work with Pam for some analysis and reporting. The self-care session with Dr. Gershon I talked about will be in December. Okay, next slide, Tony. And then our kind of schedule for January through March. So we don't have specific dates, but they will be coming out soon. We are looking at an HR, professional development and equity series. Obviously not all one, so HR and professional development for staff, and then obviously equity, two separate. I know we also supported the EPICS conference as a TA that was focused on Native Americans. So Melissa is actually going to do a little bit of equity work from that conference and had some really amazing speakers there. We're then going to be part of, so some of you as new directors were invited and registered for the new directors series. That kicks off in January. So as new directors, you'll be getting it's 6 months of a new directors, and many of you have gone through it and graduated, but it's a really great series around not just the grant implementation, which is actually the one we do, but around uniform code guidance, budgeting, and different layers. And then through the SIPR, there's a lot of tools in the hub that actually anyone really could have access to really help new directors thrive in their role. So we support that as a TA. The parent center standards. So let's just talk a moment about those. So those are rolling out right now in this form of pilot site. We need one PTI, which I believe Stone Soup did sign up, so we got it to review the family centered standards, and we need one CPRC. So I know you saw the email from Tony, but if somebody could volunteer or shoot off line to us. They would review and complete the rubric for the pilot for the nonprofit management standards. And really, the rubric is very simple, but it's basically answering some really great questions before we roll these full standards out to all the parent centers. Not just even in our region, throughout the nation, right? So this is a shared project that we all wrote as joint PTACs in our grant that we would work on together. The great thing about the standards is when you go through them and you it's like a self-assessment checklist, and you start chunk by chunk. If you start with what is required, it really is a good lens. And if you take it back to the Glenda Hicks session, there are things you might not have at your parent center now that is required that you should have. And again, it's more on the proactive side. It's not saying, but it's not just around OSEP requirement, right? We are nonprofits. So I was talking to a parent center just recently about, them seeking some additional funding through a major corporation. Those are things, some of these things and these standards are things those folks would be looking at, right? If you're applying for those funding. So I really do encourage you guys start taking a look at them. We just need one pilot. We already got our PTI, but I need a CPRC. And then I think it was right after Martin Luther King Day. Those rubrics would be due, and then we'll review them. And I think there's a big plan to roll them out at the National SIPR Conference in April. Also like to have a series on it. But I think it's really important that you get familiar with the standards, because again, a lot of the work and series that we will be doing will correlate to what you need as a nonprofit. And there's a question in the chat. Michelle, what's the time commitment? Could possibly be your CP. So right now, I think it's in the letter, Tony. Could you grab that letter that is in the thing? And because we did, that's a great question, Wendy, and we did look at that, and I just don't want to misquote. Tony, the packet we sent out, there was like an intro letter. Can you just look and see what the time commitment says in that? And I think, was there anything else on my slide, Tony? I know you flipped forward, so I just can't. I think I got everything.
It was just the APR.
Yeah, and fund APR. So we will definitely make sure you're supported on that as well. And any, I know it seems like every year, like those diminish, like it seems like we went through boot camps and stuff, but I think for some of the newer directors, there might be some support that we can offer. And honestly, if you have any advice for us on how you'd like to see APR support differently than the way we've always done it, because I just know, then definitely let us know. We're always open to feedback. And I will now pass it on to you, Angela, and Wendy, we'll get back to you on your question.
Great. Okay, so moving on to the next quarter. So April, I'm sure everybody has received by now at least information on the conference. So this is the National Parent Center Conference only, with this put on by the SIPR, and then with the assistance of each of the other regional PTACs. So this will be April 8th to the 10th. The hotel link is available, but registration for staff is not yet. So that I think is coming within the next month. I believe that's coming out by hopefully December. The RAISE Summit, which is the Transition to Adulthood, RSA, they have planned their summit to be on the tail end, on the heels of the SIPR Parent Conference, to make it a little easier for folks to be in one place, not have to leave and go somewhere else or be at yet another conference. So for those who are wanting to stay and attend that, so that will follow immediately at the same hotel in Denver. Yeah. And then the potential PTI grant, which Michelle already brought up, we have absolutely zero insight at this point of when that grant application will come out. We don't know if it'll come out early. We don't know if it'll come out later. We just know that 5 years ago, it was in the spring when we were all writing for those. But that doesn't mean anything, because I'm sure anybody who's been doing this for a while knows that those dates have fluctuated over the years. And so we will have to just wait and see. But like she said, as soon as we know, we will let you all know. So go ahead, Tony. All right. And then July to September, this is where we're looking at some of those other opportunities that were on that first slide. So nonprofit leadership capacity building and potentially nonprofit leadership certificates. I actually might let Michelle talk a bit more about this. This is an area that we are looking further into for you all, for those who are interested in potentially using next year's ICAP grants, if that's a direction that we wind up going. Michelle, do you want to say anything further about how that might look?
Sure. Yeah, I was trying. So go back to here. So yeah, I think, as again, we are theming, right, different things and looking at us as nonprofits as well as obviously OSEP funded centers, and thinking about how we need to continue to thrive and sustain. There's really great opportunity in our organizations to have the business, I call it the business side of the house, but have an opportunity to really learn about running a nonprofit, and many of us have that. And again, there could be a professional development for someone on our team, but that there's just more to just running a program, right? There's a lot of the stuff Glenda was talking about, right? There's understanding budgets, finances. I was talking to somebody recently, at a center, and they were like, the first time I ever looked at a budget, right? Like at different things. So how do we really build up the work that we do and build the capacity, which is one of tying back to our goals. So I was really excited about, as we were budgeting and talking to the team about allocating dollars in our TAC budget to be able to, we're in the process of researching different programs, so it won't be just one, but to be able to have each of our centers be able to send one person through a nonprofit leadership certificate program. So
So
there's
it
several.
goes above and beyond just this parent center standards,
Yeah, oh yeah, way above and
you
beyond.
know, right? But I mean, it's also very complementary.
Yeah, yeah, and parent center standards, like, yeah, we could necessarily say we're giving a centers of excellence approval, but what we're talking about here is a real true university-based certificate.
Yeah,
Uh,
that goes on your resume.
yeah, so I personally have it within my master's program as well, went the kind of and it was really, it's changed my life and my trajectory. But with that being said, we're researching a lot of opportunities to put it together. It's in the budget, so that's a good thing. But figuring out so how we also can make it work for our different centers, our different states. There's obviously opportunities for online, so it's not like people have to physically go, but a lot of them are 3 to 6 month, to be 9 months programs. So we're getting all that together. It'll be more probably latter part of this grant year, but it will be definitely a professional development opportunity and an opportunity to grow your center's capacity as we tie to our goal to really, again, build more sustainability. And especially as we've all been talking, there's a lot of unknowns. It doesn't matter who's in office to me. I mean, with the OSEP kind of funding, regardless, right? And also to be able to grow as organizations. As we know, with legislative dollars, it's very hard to do that. So I think this will give us a lot of opportunity to grow and be competitive, right? And running, not only just your nonprofit from the side of, understanding fund development, but also understanding things that you need to have on other ends of, the fiscal or policies and procedures, and help you grow and strengthen yourself. So that's our goal. And we'll keep you posted as more comes to fruition.
Before I go to the activities, I did want to say, so we do have a plan for, we are looking to potentially do something in late August, early September at the very latest, but I think late August is what we were planning on for a California specific parent center roundtable, to where we can also do some potential site visits at the same time, and where we really hone in on the very specific needs and topics for those centers that are in California, because we've heard over and over, and we know this to be true, that California is unique, not to mention the fact that California has a large number of parent centers compared to other states where we might just have one or two. So that's what we're looking to do, just kind of get it on your radar. And then the other part of that was a virtual gathering. So because the National Parent Center Conference is being held this year in person in Denver in April, and then of course there's OSEP Leadership that we budget for, which is usually towards the end of July, 1st of August. We assume that is happening. We have not yet been given any information on dates or that yet, but because of that, we did not see any reason to kill ourselves or you all with funding or travel. And so anything that we do as a as a gathering this year will be done virtually, and that might be in the form of a series, and it might be over the course of a couple of days. We're still working out those kinks. So, and then the other stuff here is the other activities that we have throughout the year. So throughout the year, we are planning those unity swaps. We are still looking at, that is where we have the more informal opportunities to just come together and maybe talk about a really specific topic that you all want to chat about or share resources on. And then, of course, we're still looking at all the ways that we can be elevating the communication with each other. And so I put the link to the website and the password in the chat earlier. We're really looking to improve our use of that website over the course of this year and organizing it better. The information is there. We're just going to elevate that. And then, of course, I did create that Facebook social media group. I know some of you are on there. It's starting to maybe get some use. It's just one more place where we can have either conversations. It's a closed group. It's not open to anybody other than Region D parent centers. And we can share information there, or it's also one more place where I've been able to put in some of those things that we get so many emails on, right? It's just one more thing that, okay, Carmen is looking for this, or OSEP is looking for that. It's one more place. You're still going to get it from Tony and communications, but it's hopefully another way to access something that maybe you didn't catch in your email or didn't leave in your unread, and you can go back through social media and find things that way. And then any other tech tools that we are using or sharing with each other. And I think we're ready for any Q&A at this point. What questions do you all have?
And real quick, I'll just get back to Wendy's, and she had asked that. So I just looked at the letter. There is not a specific time commitment. What it is we have from now until, I just had it open. Hold on, let me get it out. So it's like a 2-month window, Wendy, to do the self-assessment. Just basically it's a checklist. And then there was like 5 or 6 questions on the rubric. So, I mean, it could be something scattered. I think, overall going through, if you looked at the nonprofit management standards, there's quite a few. So it's basically going through that as a self-assessment and then completing the rubric questions. So, but you'd have 2 months to get it done.
Yeah, I can be your CPRC if that's helpful.
Yes, it would be great. Awesome. Thank you for that.
We're an approved vendor with the city of San Francisco, so hopefully that's more stringent and the self-assessment won't be such a big deal.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's awesome. Great. Cool. So we'll connect with you. You'll also get a stipend for doing that. So
amazing.
Awesome. Okay.
The Facebook group is in the chat. Jen had asked for that link. So hopefully that takes you in. When you join, I think I have to approve it. It's pretty basic, but it's set up that way so that we know that we really are having parent centers approved and not, I think I recognize most names. Sometimes I don't, but that's like up to you all. When anybody who's joining needs to say they are allowed to join, like for whatever rules you all may have within your own organizations, but it's pretty basic.
Yeah.
Not a lot of activity there yet, but join us.
It's a great opportunity to also share like different centers' work.
Yeah, what did we have the question last night? Just asking about what fundraising platform are you using for taking payments?
Yeah, sharing information. It's key.
Yeah, basics. What else, y'all?
Yeah, hi Michelle and Angela. Just quick question. First of all, I really appreciate you share all the activities that you guys have planned to do to support us. And I'm wondering, when you have the training, for example, for the new directors, would that be possible? Use that as one of the opportunities for us to build our capacity, because we all know, develop leadership, it takes time, right? And if you would be open the training to people who are not ED or not a project director, give them the opportunity to learn and grow, because I think that's one of the things that could be very helpful. Because, I mean, all of us, if something happened to us or suddenly there is a changes on staffing, to have somebody try to catch up with whatever a director is trying to do can be very challenging. And we actually have seen that before, right? So I'm just curious, will you guys be open up to, opportunities for those who are not directors, but have the potential? We want to cultivate the leadership.
Yes. So I think the whole focus of it is, and again, it would be up to centers on who they want to send. We're not going to dictate that. It's to me, it's sustainability, right? So we want to sustain our centers, and if the center is not sustainable beyond the executive director, then we all know that's problematic, but we understand that many of us aren't always there. So yes, it would be up to the center to designate. And I think from a budget standpoint, we will only be able to probably give each center one space for that. But yes, our intent was to have it up to the center to designate who they would like to send.
Mhm. And if we pay for additional persons, would that be okay?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're in the process now of trying to connect with the different universities that offer. We don't want to have a huge spectrum, but we also want it to be accessible, right? Because we're in different states and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think that would be a great opportunity. And I love that thinking, Ginger, because where it comes from for me is that's the kind of thinking we want you all to have as center leaders, right? Is that we are developing beyond just an
are you-
OSEP funded center.
Can I clarify though, Ginger, are you asking about the new director series or are you asking about the nonprofit leadership?
Both of them. I think
Oh.
both of them could be possible. We just need the leadership continuously.
Yeah.
If financially we can afford, that's what we hope to do
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as long as you guys are open and we understand that you do have a limited budget, so that is not a concern. It's more of, will you be willing to take on additional people? And if we pay for our way, we pay for the feed or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, we are open, and as we get more information, we can definitely figure out how to do that. And I was going with the nonprofit leadership because we're kind of in control. The new directors is run through the joint PTACs and the SIPR. And that because I think somebody had asked that question before, and I forget who it was in this group. And I did raise it at a SIPR meeting, and it is solely for the new directors at that time. So that case, it would be somebody, that's obviously in that new director role. We weren't in a position. One of our visions, I know we've talked about it, but we're just not there yet, from the joint PTAC and SIPR. But that's kind of why we're doing our own thing in our region, was to have a kind of follow-up, not just a new director series, but a professional development series. So people that are not just necessarily a new director, but they want to develop. But we're not there yet as a joint PTAC and SIPR group. But again, in Region D, that's kind of where we're trying to offer some more things for your centers to build your capacity.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Great questions. Any other questions?
I just wanted to piggyback off of Ginger and just say, I think I love that suggestion. If that's something you guys could take up, because as someone who went to the new director's training, I wish I had it probably 2 years before I actually attended it. And I just think and I know it doesn't always happen, right? Like if you're hiring outside the organization, but as somebody who kind of was dropped into her role, it was like, cool, I struggled figuring that out. And if I would have attended this sooner, so just food for thought, that I appreciated it and I learned from it, but a lot of, I think the heart of it, the meat of it, would have been so helpful for me probably 2 years before I actually attended it.
Yeah, no, I get it. We get it.
And it's been said by other people as well. I think that we do have the ability to, I mean, we've talked all this time, even leading up to this grant, just in how to develop leaders and how to continue to develop leadership. So how do we give you those types of materials earlier as directors, not as TA, but as executive directors? How do we help build the leadership in our staff as not even, part of our succession plans, but maybe even if we're not leaving, how do we still build that, so there are more than, if something did happen, you've got somebody that knows what they're able to step into. And I think that is something that is a goal and a priority of at least ours, that we can provide that kind of information. But I know some of that is on the SIPRs, on the hub, on the Parent Center hub for staff to access. It's just not in that, you're not in a cohort at that point. So good food for thought and stuff for us to be thinking about as we move forward too.
Yeah, and if I can also share a little bit perspective here is that maybe I remember it wrong because the first time I attended a meeting, that was probably 15 years ago now. It's been a while. And I kind of remember they also invite like a board of directors. And so if that's the case, why not we ask them to give us one more slot? Because some of the boards, some of our boards, they just don't want to do anything, or some of our boards, they may not have the capacity just to go on a trip, to the learning. And so, instead of wasting one more spot per se, can we, just ask them and say, could you be willing to do that for the purpose of cultivating more leadership? Just asking and see what would they say, what would they do. That would be something I would appreciate it. You guys represented us and share our thoughts with them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a really good point, Ginger, because I'm like you. When I first came into this network as a director, I think we had a whirlwind trip to DC. It was like it was like 48 hours, and you brought your board chair with you if possible. So my board chair and I were both deer in the headlights going to DC and having all this information just kind of over the course of a 48-hour period, as opposed to what we're able to do now with the series, right? Where you can absorb it a little bit more. But we've lost that piece of it, of the board chair being invited to the new director series.
And they're all remote, right? You guys aren't, I mean, we didn't go anywhere on it. So yeah, but we will represent that. I think that's a great point. I know we have in the past too talked about, and I don't know where we are in the iterations, but not just a new director series, a series that goes beyond to the next layer, right? Where also should be open then to other staff, right? And it's kind of a professional development, more learning. I think it's been more about bandwidth of the group. My understanding, because I remember raising it, and I forget who asked that, but somebody in our region asked that question before to say, it would be great if I could send such and such, and I think it was Chris Tiffany actually. Now I'm remembering this conversation. And I kind of got shot down there, but we will keep representing, and we will keep raising, and we will also keep building. I think, as a joint PTAC and a SIPR, we're trying to build capacity, to strengthen all of us around, again, so figuring out, I think I get capacity, but I also think it's really important for centers to continue to grow and develop and to grow, I'm sorry, but outside of just what the grant deliverables are. We are nonprofits first, in my view. And I know this is being recorded. I don't mean to, but we are nonprofits, and we have grants we have to hold with fidelity, but we're never going to be able to grow if we don't get those other tools. So I hear you all loud and clear. Any other questions or thoughts for us? I mean, this is good dialogue, good food for thought. As we're building series, as we're, working, we will go back to the ICAPS. HR was huge, right, Tony? I mean, you studied those buckets. which kind of led us to what we're calling, I don't know if we're going to call it an HR boot camp. We've seen that, but we're looking at a really robust series and also maybe having some really credible speakers around some really great HR kind of things that come up with, our team and things that we need to do in that kind of, and we know that many of us can't afford an HR person in-house. Some may have, some may not, but also how do we really learn? And I know every state has different legal obligations in that sense, but there's a lot that we're going to pull into what we're, looking in this boot camp, and obviously people that would represent all the states that we represent to understand the laws behind that. So.
Yeah, actually, just to piggyback off, HR was one of our biggest responses of what needs, I should say.
Yeah. Anything else? And we're also hoping that the culture building interviews by Pam Kelly will help us. We know each other, but get to know your centers and also your center's strengths, which also then might lead us to lean on you. And why we've done it before too, we've offered stipends or honorariums where you could lead a session or a series in an area your center is really thriving in, or those unity swaps, as Angela pointed out in one of the slides, was that really looking to, and we've had that before, leading discussions, but as we're getting to know your centers a little bit better and the ins and outs and the strengths, as well as, the other things of when we talk about needs, but also your strengths, I think it will help us drive some really fruitful conversations so we can also learn from each other. Because I think we have a lot of great power within this network of our region here and a lot of great work that's being done. And we can capitalize on that as we can grow and, people that are mastering different avenues and there's a lot, right, that we can learn from each other. So. Any other thoughts or reflections? Otherwise, we will give you 10 minutes of your life back, which is huge.
Just because it's in the forefront, because it's one of the things I'm working on. I would love, if there was ever like an opportunity for us to even share like our end of year giving, like if people are doing asks like that and annual reports, I'd love to see how other centers do it. Just because if you have a good way of doing it, why recreate it or, redo it instead of just reutilizing what people already are doing. But, just because that's something we're working on right now that I was like, man, I'm curious to see what other centers do. And even, I know at the happy hour, Mario shared some great thoughts and I was like, I would have never thought to like verbalize it that way. And I just was like, man, it'd be cool to kind of do that all as a team.
No, I think we'll capture that. I think that would be a great unity swap discussion, Jen.
Yeah.
And we have our December session on self-care, so it might not, but it will be something for future, because I know annual giving which honestly, a good annual giving campaign starts in August, technically, because everyone's hitting up in November, December, and your emails are all flooded and boxes. So it probably would be a great unity swap so that people can be primed maybe for next year. So I think that's a great suggestion. And that's what with the purpose of unity swaps. And we might actually, I know Mario's team's here, but Mario shared at our ED happy hour, and Ginger was there too. It kind of was like a cost metric that was interesting as a parent center network, looking at a cost of legal, right? If somebody was to sue a school district versus the savings on the prevention side. And it was really good data analysis. And it was interesting because I know at Big Brothers Big Sisters, we would use a cost per match. Like it takes, $1,500 a year to mentor a child versus, $96,000 a year to build an incarceration bed. And I would use that all over the place. And that's how, and when I came to the parent center, I was like, well, what is our cost? And so they had some really good data. So we might ask them to do, once they're getting a unity swap on that. I think using those kind of languages too really help as you're talking to funders and as you're trying to also build diversification funders outside of the federal grants. Yeah, it's a great one,
Jen,
Jen.
throw it into the Facebook group too. Ask it as a question and see if we can generate some, I guess, some early conversation around it before putting a Unity swap together. Like, what questions do we want answered? That'd be great.
Yeah, Michelle and Angela, I have one more question. You know, on your key activities from January to March, you started with HR, professional development, and equity. And I was wondering that, you know, you have a Pam Kelly is doing some interviews. Um, are those interviews that she is conducting with each center actually will gather more needs of statements regarding to HR, professional development, and equity? And if that's the case, I don't know what's the how much of their interview outcomes can actually guide these discussion, or could this be also using as an opportunity to gather feedback from a larger group instead of only individually? Because I understand, you know, our timeline is always an issue for us, right? Doesn't matter what we do. And the great work that you guys are leading, try to help us. I see that would be even more meaningful instead of you provide a service right away, provide a training or whatever, and maybe conduct a needs assessment first and understand exactly what does that look like. So just a thought. I
No,
don't
that's a
know
great
about your
question.
schedule, but just a
That's a
thought.
great question. So let me just give some context. So it's kind of both, Ginger. So what we're looking to do in January kind of is morphing from what we saw in the ICAPs. So in the mini grants, we were seeing, obviously, we were given $2,000. We know it was something. It's not a ton of money, but we were seeing a need within that we need to do some stuff around professional development and human resources. So that is kind of what that series is. What Pam is doing is also going to help us propel the next 3 years, year 3 to 5. So it's not just all year 2 initiatives. What Pam is doing, because it's going to be a year, like, I mean, data collection and stuff. And I do like your group session too. We thought the one-on-ones could also allow people to speak. You know, sometimes it's crickets. I mean, so I think we can kind of do both. But I think what we're doing with Pam, to me, and Angela and Tony chime in, is more of a longer term needs assessment, where what we're launching for series early this year was from what we saw this past year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see that. Thank you for explaining that. So would you mind share a little bit more on what the January for the, you know, the HR, professional development and equity, exactly what are the agenda? Is that something you learned through the ICAP, like what you say, right? Or is that going to be a sharing section for us to see, hey, it's not only me, not only my organization, there are many PTIs and CPRCs experience similar situation. Or maybe somebody say, hey, you guys need this. We actually are doing great. We can share. so just I'm just curious about, you know, what are other parent centers experience in their ICAP, yeah, and what you are planning to do for that.
Yeah. So, Tony, do you want to just share a little bit about the ICAP HR findings? And then Angela, I'm going to ask you to share, because you went to that amazing HR session that I didn't get to go to because I was presenting at Region B, and we were looking at something similar for our region from the boot camp perspective. So Tony, share the ICAP, and then Angela can share the vision of what we were looking at possibly for our series.
Did we lose Tony?
Actually, Tony, oh, you're on mute, Tony, if you're talking. I was like, there you are. You hear us? All right, well, Angela, why don't you go first, and then we'll go back to him.
Well, yeah, I guess 2 things to answer the question. One, what I went to for Region B was was it a full day, half day, about a half day, virtual presentation by Bill Krisner of the Krisner Group. And he's done quite a bit of work with regions, I think, beyond B. And it was really focused on, I mean, just as it sounds, it was HR. It was an HR boot camp. I mean, that's really what it was, but it was really for managers, for executive directors, and of nonprofits. It wasn't focused on parent-centered, but it certainly took the parent-centered work into consideration. It was very interactive. I, not being part of Region B, I didn't have their culture, the way they know each other, the way we know each other. But it was really drilled down. I'd have to look at my notes. I'm on the spot right now, but to look at my notes of everything that I took away, because I kept a lot of that, but it was on hiring practices. It was on when you have to let people go, you know, and developing good policies, making sure that your policies are all aligned and up to date. It was just really in-depth and excellent work. Now, but as far as equity goes, it touched on equity, but it didn't touch on equity the way some of the other work that we're looking to do. What we're looking right now in year 2 is laying that groundwork for 3, 4, and 5. And I know that we have some folks on deck, including Ginger, I believe you all, for the coming years to really assist Region D parent centers with more of the equity work. We've got Dr. Rosemary Allen is also somebody that Michelle has worked with and is on deck for the coming years as well to work on some of that with us. But what we want to make sure is that whoever we have doing that work is aligned with the needs that have been identified. And so while we are not necessarily doing a formal needs assessment right now in gathering this data, more so we are looking at individual needs and then pulling it together. There may come a place and a time in year 3 where a real needs assessment could be developed on those things. And then we just want to make sure that whoever we have presenting or helping us with that work, it is aligned with what everybody is wanting and has been identifying over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I will say I've been through a boot camp of Bill Krisner's just because I actually asked to just sit in just to kind of learn in different regions. And I loved that he actually had real case scenarios. He didn't obviously identify names that you can then like make it real for your center. Like I was working remotely and then I went to grab some, grab my kid real quick and I got a flat tire. Like, is this covered on company tire? Like just real scenarios that you sometimes that we know we grapple with as leaders and HR, managers and going, oh my God, like how do I deal with that? So I think that was a really good, and it did, Ginger, to your point, open up discussions for people to talk. And I'm looking back at the mini grants or the ICAPs, and because we have a listing of everything, and we did see a trend around people also wanting to engage HR consultants, so using that money there. And again, it's $2,000, so I'm not sure how much we're looking at a series. It's not going to be a one and done training, but they wanted to engage HR consultants to assess HR policies, practices, hiring practices, kind of what Angela was alluding to, including recruitment, onboarding, staff development, training, performance evaluations. So there's so many buckets that fall under human resources. So right now, we're going to be working with the consultant and trying to digestible and then offer a series. And again, it won't just be a January thing. It's going to be, an ongoing growth opportunity for us as centers.
Hey, I'm sorry, I did hear my screen froze, so I couldn't get in.
Okay. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at. And I know we're right at time, but this was great discussion. I see Ginger had to hop off, so hopefully she heard me. If not, I'll follow up with her in an email. But yeah, we're looking forward to a great year with all of you and beyond, right? This is not just a 1 year kind of plan, but we're really starting to put our planning, obviously our budget, max together and figuring out ways to support as much as we can. So stay tuned.
And you know where to find us if you have a question individually or if you need anything.
Yes.
Can I speak with either Angela or Michelle? Just a brief question I have after, like,
we got it.
You want us to stay on?
Yes.
We'll stay on.
All right, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.